In the last chapter, we left off at having an image on the image plane, which is the table that we got. We talked about setting our project by going to File, Set Project, and then going to our desktop, finding our table. And remember, you want to make sure that your table is selected and you hit Set, so that every time you go to File, Open, you can see that it goes into the table folder. If I go and create another Lambert material, and I double click, and I go to Color, File, and I click on the folder, the very first place it looks is within that table directory because we had set that project. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and delete these guys. So all you should have, and all I did was I left clicked on them, I select delete. So all you should have is your reference table in here. If you don't have it and it looks, let's not do that. Let's close out and reopen our Hypershader. And again, we can middle mouse, which is the wheel, and just drag that reference table down here. And this is our work area where we do some working on our textures. Again, actually all 3D applications are very easy. They're just packed with so many awesome features that it can feel daunting. Like, what the heck is a surface shader, a ramp shader, all the other stuff. The great thing about the age we're in is that all I have to do is Google it, and I can find a tutorial on anything that's in Maya. Okay, so we also know that if I left click or drag out a marquee, I can select an object, and I know it's selected because it has a green line or green arrow around it. So let's go ahead and set our image so that it fits on our image plane. So I'm going to go ahead and close my Hypershader, and I'm going to introduce you to something else called the UV texture editor. We're not going to get into a lot of detail in this. If you are interested, I have many tutorials on using the UV texture editor for creating characters. So after you complete this series, and by the end of the class we'll have a character model, then you'll be able to paint on it and all that. So go to Window, UV texture editor here, and you can see, now let me explain a little bit about what a UV is. A UV is a 2D representation of our 3D object. So we have a 3D plane, believe it or not, because it's sort of 2D because it doesn't have much width, but because I can go to my perspective mode and I can actually rotate around this, you can see I have a 3D view of it. My image plane is not set to the width of my dimensions within the UV texture editor. So let's kind of cover this one more time. So we have a 3D image, and the way that we actually can edit the picture that's on this plane is by going into the UV texture editor. So let's go to Window, UV texture editor, or hold Control and Shift and click on it and add that to our taskbar. Now I'm going to right click. I'm holding down the right mouse button here and go to UVs. And if I lift click and I drag out my marquee, you can see that little green UV dots appear. This edge, and you can see if I just select this UV, it highlights this dot. They represent where my image plane is in relation to the picture. So you can see that right now it does not encompass my entire picture. So what I'm going to do is left click out here, drag out a marquee, and just select these two dots. I'm going to hit W, or I can click here on my move tool. And I'm just going to move it up and just go to the very top of my edge until my white line encompasses that black area. So something like this. Alright, so little something like this. Alright, just so we can fit our image on our plane. Alright, let's go ahead and close out of our UV texture editor. So now we have our table applied to our plane. So if you can see, I'm in object mode now. Okay. Alright, so now we're going to actually begin to sort of model out our table. So I'm going to hit spacebar to zoom out of our front view. And I'm going to go into my perspective view, which is up here. And I'm just going to hover my mouse over my perspective window and hit spacebar again. And I'm going to hit 5 or 6 so I can see that image. And I'm going to move it back. And I want it to sort of be a little bit smaller on my grid. So I'm going to hit R. And I'm going to click on the yellow box and hold my left mouse button and just scale this down. And then hit W and sort of move it up. And again, we can do that in our front view as well. So I'm going to hold down my spacebar on my perspective view, hold down the right mouse button, go to front, and hit spacebar again. And again, you can sort of scale or move your front view around. Okay? So let's go ahead and start by creating this first leg here. Okay. Now the first thing you might notice is, okay, this looks like a box up here. So I could probably use that box tool that I made earlier to start to create the leg of this table. All right. And it's got a little indenture here. So I can probably use my split polygon tool to cut it there. And it's got a little cut here. And I can use that there. Same thing here. Okay. But what we're going to start with first is just creating the overall shape of our table. Okay. So in the top view, what we're going to do is go to Create, Polygon Primitives Cube. Actually, you know what? Let's do a little bit of a challenge. Let's try to make it all in the perspective view. So I'm going to hit spacebar in the perspective view, and this way it gives you a chance to sort of really like practice your rotate, move, and scale tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to left click on my grid and just create a cube the size of one of these little grid sections. Okay, and so the way I did that is, let's go ahead and hit enter. Let me drag that out, hit enter and Control Z. So I'm going to go to Create, Polygon Primitive, and if you want, Control Shift and add that up here. Create a cube, and then just drag it out, you know, roughly into one of the grid size, and then left mouse and move it up. And you can kind of eyeball it. I'm not going to be grading you too much on your ability to match the size just yet. In future projects I will. So you can see there, now I have one leg. Okay. I'm going to want to duplicate this leg. So I can go to Edit and go down to Duplicate. And it'll create a duplicate right on top of it. I'm going to go ahead and move that over. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and hold Control and select both of these guys. Or I'm sorry, Shift. So now I have this one selected. I held Shift. And I'm going to create those two back legs. I'm going to go ahead and do Edit, Duplicate. Now, forget about it. What you'll notice is right here it says Control D. So let's try that. So I had each one selected. So alright, so I'm holding Shift. I'm sorry. Yeah, let's try that again. It looks like it's kind of hanging up for a second. There we go. So okay, I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate those guys and then just move them over. And so now I sort of have my four legs. Now the shape of the base of my table is also a cube. So let's go ahead and go grab our cube tool, and we can do this from the top. Looks like I duplicated the plane as well. What I'm going to do is now I'm going to take advantage of my top view, because if we look at the distance, it looks like this inner box shape is almost directly in the center of these legs. So let's go ahead and hit spacebar. Let's go to our top view. I'm going to hold Alt and middle mouse to kind of get in the middle of these four guys. And I'm just going to left click inside of the center of this leg here. And I'm just going to left click and hold and drag that out to the center of this guy down here in the right corner. So now I have the bottom, and it says drag to set the height. I don't want to do that just yet. I want to do that in my perspective view. So I'm going to sort of I'm just Alt left clicking, kind of moving around. And I'm going to just move up, and I'm going to set it. I'm just eyeballing this for now. So I'm looking at this, and it looks about right for the size. So let's go ahead and move this up. And don't be too concerned with, like, the legs are really short here, mine are really long. We're going to edit the vertices like we did in the last video. So if we right click and go to Vertex Mode, you can see that if I hit 4, my vertices are hidden on the inside of the other 4 legs. And so we can do things like copy them even though they're hidden and move them down. You can try that now. It's not terribly important if you do right now. We can cover that later again. All right, same thing here. I want to create the top of my table. So I'm just going to hit Control D, duplicate that, move this up, and then I'm going to use that same trick I showed you a minute ago to sort of create the height of that top of that table. I'm going to right click, go to Vertex Mode, move this down so that I have something like that looks like the top. I'm going to right click and go to Object Mode and reselect it. and then I'm going to go ahead and hit R, and I'm just going to scale out that table. And I'm going to hit W and just kind of move it up. Now my pivot point, which is this guy, kind of got out of whack, and that's okay. What we want to do is go to Modify, and then click on Center Pivot to center that to our table. Okay. So what we can do at this point is by holding Control, we can Shift, we can select all these legs here. Right click, go to Vertex Mode. I'm going to left click out here and grab all these bottom verts. Or what you can do is if you